Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. Tonight we need to talk about a meeting between Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, and Vladimir Putin, the longtime dictator and shirtless horseback rider extraordinaire. This delightful rendezvous was first reported by an investigative journalist for V-Square and later confirmed by Radio Free Europe, citing sources within the Hungarian government. Yes, that's right folks, we're dealing with top-notch intel here. Now you might be wondering what could bring these two prominent figures together. Could it be a shared stance of press freedom, or perhaps a common interest in political strategies? Or maybe just a casual exchange of fashion advice, or for projecting strength and confidence? But let's talk about the real gem in this story, Viktor Orban's suggestion of a potential ceasefire. Of course, Putin responded as one would expect from a man who seems to have taken foreign policy lessons from a Bond villain. Putin graciously declined, stating that there would be no ceasefire unless Kyiv makes irreversible and acceptable moves. Translation? Unless Ukraine gives up 4 of its regions and basically hands them over on a silver platter. Now, this situation is so absurd it makes one wonder if Orban is living in some alternate reality where appeasing a tyrant results in peace. Meanwhile, the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk couldn't resist poking fun at Orban on social media, questioning if the rumors of his visit to Moscow were true. It's as if Tusk was saying, "Come on, Viktor, this is too much even for you, right?"
Владимир Владимирович, скажите, как вы считаете, возможно ли прекращение огня по линии боевого соприкосновения с Украиной до начала мирных переговоров без предварительных условий, чтобы хотя бы для того, чтобы повысить шанс на успех? Или это тоже предмет переговоров? Спасибо.
Да, вы знаете, я напомню некоторые вещи. Когда наши войска стояли под Киевом, мы получили предложение и даже просьбу настойчивую со стороны западных партнеров прекратить огонь, прекратить боевые действия для того, чтобы были предприняты определенные вещи с украинской стороны. И мы это сделали. Там был такой эпизод, мы это сделали. Украинская сторона не прекратила боевых действий. А потом нам было сказано, что украинские официальные власти не могут контролировать все свои вооруженные формирования. Потому что там якобы есть такие, которые не подчиняются центральным властям. Вот так нам было сказано. Здесь я ничего не прибавил, не убавил. Это первое. Второе. Нас просили отвести с целью создания условий для окончательного заключения мирного соглашения войска от Киева. Мы сделали это и опять столкнулись с обманом. Все договоренности, достигнутые в Стамбуле, были выброшены в помойку. И так было неоднократно. Поэтому просто сейчас взять и объявить о прекращении огня в надежде на то, что обратная сторона предпримет какие-то позитивные шаги, мы просто не можем.
In a nutshell, we have a Hungarian Prime Minister seemingly on a diplomatic mission from an alternate dimension, and a Russian dictator whose demands make the term negotiation sound like a cruel joke. It's a heartwarming tale of international relations gone absolutely bonkers. Now we need to talk about Russia's latest and most cunningly observed information operation. It's being called Peace, which is quite the ironic name considering the source. The goal? To muddy the waters around Ukraine's peace formula in the minds of the West, the global South, and even within Ukraine itself. It's like naming a pit of snake the friendly garden. According to Andrei Kovalenko, the head of the Center for Countering Disinformation and Office of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, Russia is working hard to flood the information space with the deluge of fake peace plans and conspiracy theories about secret negotiations that have supposedly begun. It's like a bad episode of Game of Thrones, but with less dragons and more propaganda. And who are the actors in this tragic comedy? Russian propagandists within the countries, experts on Asian and Middle Eastern platforms, and a network of operatives working their deceptive magic in the West. Even the grand maestro of misinformation himself, Vladimir Putin, is actively commenting on these peace initiatives, trying to give them a veneer of credibility. Because when you think peace, you naturally think of the guy who, started a war in the first place, right? Now, the chief strategy here is to create what Kovalenko calls white noise, This noise is meant to appeal to parts of global society that are desperate for peace at any price, even if it means sacrificing justice and common sense. The real kicker? Russia is not interested in a fair peace at all. They're ramping up their military capabilities to continue the war, while simultaneously spreading the illusion that Ukraine is the one refusing to negotiate. It's a classic gaslighting maneuver, making it seem like the victim is the unreasonable party. Kovalenko stressed that the only real proof that Russia is ready for a fair peace would be their participation in the upcoming peace summit. But as it stands, Russia is doing everything it can to undermine Ukraine's peace formula and drown the discourse in its own dubious plans. So there you have it, Russia's information operation, Peace, a masterclass in Orwellian doublespeak. It's as if they'd taken George Orwell's 1984 as an instruction manual rather than the cautionary tale. And yet, despite all the noise and deception, the truth remains clear. Genuine peace is not achieved through lies and manipulation, but through justice and accountability. Get around, everyone, because it's time for another episode of What Did Vladimir Putin Say This Time? The setting, a press conference in Astana following the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. The star of the show, Vladimir Putin, Russia's premier purveyor of perplexing proclamations. In his latest performance, Putin referred to the Taliban as the leadership of Afghanistan and, hold on to your hats, allies in the fight against terrorism. Yes, you heard that right. The Taliban, the group that Russia officially designated as a terrorist organization in 2003, are now being courted as potential partners in combating terrorism. According to Putin, Russia has received signals from the Taliban indicating their readiness to collaborate on counter-terrorism efforts. And Moscow welcomes this, because what better way to ensure stability than by, teaming up with a group known for its violent suppression and medieval interpretation of law and order. If this were a sitcom, the laugh track would be going wild right now.
Уверен, что и Талибан заинтересован в том, чтобы в Афганистане все было стабильно, спокойно и подчинено определенным правилам. И мы неоднократно получали такие сигналы со стороны движения Талибана о том, что они готовы с нами работать и на антитеррористическом треке. Пожалуйста.
Putin's logic, to put it generously, creative. He argues that since the Taliban controls Afghanistan, they must be interested in the stability of their regime and the country. Therefore, they are undoubtedly allies in the fight against terrorism. It's like saying, well, they're the one holding the knife, so naturally they're interested in stopping the stabbing. Let's not forget the backdrop here. The Taliban was recognized as a terrorist organization by the United Nations Security Council and has a long history of brutal actions. Just recently, supporters of the Taliban subjected an activist who opposed them to gang-sexualized violence in an Afghan prison. Yet despite all this, the Russian Foreign Ministry and the Ministry of Justice have reported to Putin that the Taliban might be removed from the list of banned organizations. Putin's response? The issue is under discussion. Of course it is, because nothing says stable governance like a group that instills fear and oppression on its people. So here we are, with Putin attempting to paint the Taliban as misunderstood potential allies. It's a move so baffling it feels like we've stepped into a parallel universe where up is down and terrorists are peacemakers. But in the grand theater of geopolitics, perhaps we shouldn't be too surprised by the bizarre alliances and twisted logic that emerged from the Kremlin stage. In the end, this isn't just a matter of strategic partnership. It's a stark reminder of the moral gymnastics some leaders are willing to perform on the world stage. And if you listen closely, you can almost hear Orwell whispering, "I told you so." And with that, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.